Java is the most volatile piece of land on Earth. It is a graveyard of civilizations, a jagged scar along the equator where the Indian Ocean plate dives violently beneath the Eurasian plate. This is the Ring of Fire. Here, the ground does not just shake, it breathes, it cracks, and it resets. History here is not written in ink. It is erased by ash and water. And yet, amidst this chaotic geological violence, one structure remains. It sits quietly in the humid highlands of West Java, masquerading as a natural hill. They call it Gunung Padang, the mountain of light. Mainstream archaeology looks at these terraces and sees a primitive altar. They see a place where simple hunter-gatherers piled rocks to worship the sky. They tell us this is a site of ritual, a ceremonial platform built by a people who had just discovered fire. But engineering demands a different verdict. When you strip away the jungle, when you ignore the moss and the mainstream timeline, and you look purely at the physics of the stone, the religious narrative collapses. We are not looking at a temple. We are looking at a machine. To understand the machine, you must first understand the anomaly of the material. The surface of Gunung Padang is covered in thousands of hexagonal columns. This is columnar basalt. It is volcanic, born from rapid cooling lava, forming perfect geometric prisms. It is incredibly dense, heavy, and rigid. On the Mohs scale, it is unforgiving. In modern construction, we use this for sea walls and road bases because it does not yield. But here, it has been harvested, transported, and stacked with a precision that defies the tools of the Stone Age. But the true secret, the smoking gun of this investigation, is not what is on the surface. It is what lies beneath. Ground-penetrating radar and seismic tomography scans have revealed a truth that rewriting history cannot suppress. The mountain is not a mountain. It is a terraformed pyramid, sculpted layer by layer, and deep inside, in what we call Layer 2 and Layer 3, dating back potentially 25,000 years to the depths of the last ice age, we find a construction technique that should not exist. We find the basalt columns, these massive, rigid needles of rock, stacked horizontally. But they are not stacked on bedrock. They are not cemented with mortar. They are laid intentionally on top of deep, thick beds of rounded river stones. Pause and consider the forensic implication of that choice. River stones are smooth. They are polished by centuries of water flow. They are round. In static architecture, the architecture of temples, houses, and walls, you never build on round stones. Round stones are unstable. They roll. They shift. They are the enemy of stability. If you are building a static monument to the gods, you want friction, you want flatness, you want the ground to stop moving. So why would a civilization clearly capable of moving tons of rock choose to build their massive foundation on a bed of marbles? There is only one engineering explanation. They didn't want the structure to be static. They wanted it to move. This is not ritual. This is base isolation. In modern structural engineering, specifically in Tokyo and San Francisco, we build our greatest skyscrapers on rollers, springs, and ball bearings. We disconnect the building from the ground. Why? Because when the megathrust earthquake hits, when the energy release is equivalent to 1,000 atomic bombs, the ground doesn't just shake. It shears. It moves laterally, violently, snapping concrete and steel like dry twigs. If the building is attached to the ground, the building dies. But if the building is floating, if the building can slide, the energy passes underneath it. The ground moves violently to the left, but the inertia of the building keeps it stationary, rolling smoothly on its bearings. The energy is dissipated, the structure survives. Gunung Padang is a 5-terrace impulse dampener. The builders of this site were not looking up at the stars in wonder, they were looking down at the ground in terror. They knew where they lived, they knew the cycle, they understood the mechanics of the Ring of Fire. They knew that a time would come when the subduction zone would snap. Let us run the simulation. We dial the clock back 12,900 years. The Younger Dryas boundary. The world is ending. The climate is shifting violently. The ice sheets are melting, redistributing billions of tons of weight across the planet's crust. Isostatic rebound is triggering a global chain reaction of seismic events. In West Java, the fault line ruptures. A magnitude 9.0 megathrust earthquake rips through the bedrock. The sound is not a noise, it is a pressure wave, a sub-bass frequency below 20 Hz that liquefies the bowels. The jungle floor begins to ripple like water. This is liquefaction. The solid earth loses its cohesion and turns into a fluid slurry of mud and sand. Trees are swallowed whole. Simple structures, huts, homes, static stone walls are torn apart at the molecular level. They crack, they crumble, they sink into the liquid earth. But look at the kinetic fortress. As the seismic wave hits the mountain, the deep layers activate. The rigid basalt columns, locked together like armor plating, hold the shape of the mountain. But underneath them, the massive beds of river stones begin to engage. They grind, they roll, they clash. The sound is deafening. The dry, hard clatter of millions of stones dissipating the kinetic energy of the planet. The earth beneath Gunung Padang slides 3 meters to the east, but the mountain does not snap. It slides, it floats on its lithic bearings. The friction is converted into heat and sound, not structural failure. The terraces sway, dancing with the rhythm of the catastrophe, but they do not fall. When the dust settles, when the screaming stops and the waters recede, the fortress remains. This level of engineering implies a terrifying awareness. You do not build a seismic damper by accident. You do not transport rolling stones from a riverbed miles away and bury them under volcanic rock for a ritual. You do this because you have data. You do this because you have survived this before. This changes the definition of the site entirely. A temple is built to preserve a belief. A bunker is built to preserve a species. If Gunung Padang is a vault, what is it protecting? Is it simply a high ground, a refuge from the rising seas of the Sunderland flood? Or is the structure itself the message? We look at the tool marks. We look at the drill cores. The precision requires a hardness of material that copper and bronze cannot touch. We are looking for the tools that built this, and we find nothing. But perhaps the structure is the tool. The mainstream lie tells us that civilization is a straight line, evolving from primitive to advanced. They tell us that we are the apex, the first time humanity has mastered the planet. Gunung Padang breaks that line. It suggests that civilization is a cycle, that we have been here before, that we have reached a pinnacle of understanding physics and geology, and then we were reset. The builders of Gunung Padang were not praying for mercy. They were engineering a solution to an extinction-level event. They were pragmatists. They looked at the timeline, they saw the cycle closing, and they poured their entire industrial capacity into piling rock in a way that would outlast the apocalypse. They didn't write their warning in books, which burn. They didn't write it in language, which fades. They wrote it in the language of mass and friction. They built a mountain that says, the earth is unstable, the ground will liquefy, and the only way to survive is to detach yourself from the foundation. We stand on the terraces today, tourists taking selfies, archaeologists arguing over pottery shards, completely missing the monster beneath our feet. We are standing on the roof of a dormant machine, a machine that worked. The civilization that built it is gone, wiped away by the rising oceans and the forgetting of time. But the machine is still here. And if you listen closely in the silence of the excavation trenches, you can almost hear the stones waiting, waiting for the cycle to turn again, waiting for the moment when the ground liquefies once more and the fortress is called back into service. And this is not a ruin, it is a patent, and it is waiting for us to read it.